everything in set 15 is inspired by anime. Some are pretty obvious. Rise's ability is clearly a Kamehameha from Dragon Ball, but others are so obscure it took a full team of anime experts just to figure them out. This is every anime reference in KO Coliseum. Not everything in the set is a direct reference to a character or an ability in a specific anime, so before we start, let's define 4 different types of references. A direct reference is a clear reference to a specific thing in a specific anime. An inspired reference means they drew inspiration from an anime or something relating to anime. A classic anime trope is pretty self-explanatory. It's just a reference to something that happens a lot in anime. And the last type of reference is headcanon. These are references I hope are references, but they're probably not. Oh, and last thing before we start, there will be spoilers, because this is a video about anime. Let's start with set 15's new mechanic, power-ups. 100 push-ups is a reference to Sung Jin Woo's daily quest at the beginning of solo leveling. His daily quest is to run 10 kilometers and do 100 push-ups, sit-ups, and squats. And now that you're done writing your comment saying that this is actually a reference to Saitama's workout plan in One Punch Man, go ahead and like and subscribe. Sorry for the bait. All Out is a classic anime trope, my favorite example being Might Guy when he fights against Madara. Atomic's name reminds me of this clip, but the actual effect is more like Deidara at the end of his fight with Satsuke in Shippuden. Bestest Boy is an anime trope, my favorite being Levi. Blade Nado and Blink Attack are common moves in anime. Sanemi from Demon Slayer has his wind breathing attacks, and Zoro from One Piece has this tornado spinny type move. Ho-Ho is the skill from Bleach that literally translates into fast movement, and my favorite example of this fast movement in anime is Toji in this scene. Blood Brothers is a power-up exclusive to Yasuo and Yon, and even though they are brothers in the League universe, I do believe it's a reference to Inuyasha. They're both swordsmen, and the older brother has half a demon more than their younger brother, so, it doesn't match up exactly, but it's close enough. Body change refers to shapeshifters. It's definitely not an anime exclusive reference, but I thought I'd mention it. Bullet hell is a genre of games that originated in Japan with Batsugun, but the most popular one I think is Toho. Dark Amulet is a reference to trinkets in anime that exchange your health or your sanity for more power, my favorite example being the Millennium Ring from Yu-Gi-Oh! Essence Share is a generic reference to sharing your power with your allies, think Rimuru from the Slime anime. Fairy Tail is Fairy Tail. Fan Service, Final Ascent, and Final Boss are just classic anime tropes. Final Form is a reference to the iconic "This isn't even my final form" said by Frieza in Dragon Ball. But when I was doing research for this video, I found out that Frieza never even says this line, and it's a sort of Mandela effect. So I guess it's a Dragon Ball reference, but it's not a reference to anything real. What is real are the references for the next 2 power-ups, Fusion Dance and Gather Force, where Fusion Dance is a direct reference to the Fusion Dance in Dragon Ball, and Gather Force is a reference to a Spirit Ball. Gem Core seems like a generic reference to a stone that grants power. The only specific reference I could find is this clip. Hat Trick is just a generic term referring to a player scoring 3 times in a single game, but I'm gonna say it's a Blue Lock reference. Hero's Arc refers to a classic story where a hero goes out on his journey, defeats the villain, and comes home a different person. Hungry Hero is either a reference to Luffy from One Piece or Pig God from One Punch Man. Icebender is a reference to Avatar: The Last Airbender, which isn't technically an anime, but I'm gonna say it's close enough. Kahuna Huna is a double reference. First, to Kamehameha, which is Goku's signature move in Dragon Ball, and Kamehameha is the name of the first king of Hawaii, and Kahuna is the Hawaiian word for expert, so Kahuna Huna, Kamehameha. Living Wall could be a reference to the walls in Attack on Titan and how they're made of titans who are living. Mastermind is a reference to myself because of my insane amount of intellect. All of the max power-ups are references to the X battle items from Pokemon, where Max Arcana is X special attack, Max attack is X attack, Max speed is X speed, and Max vitality is X defense. Mech Pilot is just a generic reference to somebody who pilots a mech like Gundam Meisters from Gundam.
It's over 9,000! What?
Pure Heart is another classic anime trope. Rare Tree is a reference to the rare candies from Pokemon games that increase your Pokemon's level by 1. Serious Slam is a reference to Saitama's set of serious moves. These moves are what Saitama uses whenever he wants to exert a little more effort. Shadow Clone is a reference to Naruto's Shadow Clone Jutsu. Sky Piercer is a reference to Tengen Lopin Lagan, which translates to Heaven Piercing Lagan. Solar Breath reminds me of Sun Breathing, the first breathing style from Demon Slayer. Space Ace is a reference to Ace from One Piece, but we'll talk a little bit more about that later. Spirit Sword is a reference to the Spirit Sword from Yu Yu Hakusho. Star Sailor is a generic reference to space adventure animes like Cowboy Bebop. Star Student is a classic anime trope and my favorite favorite star student is Miyuki Shirogane from Love is War. Stormbending is a reference to airbending from Avatar, but I always think of Yuno from Black Clover instead. Stretchy Arms is a reference to Monkey D. Luffy from One Piece. We have another Panny Andrew reference, super genius. We have Surge 66, which seems like a reference to either Lieutenant Surge from Pokemon or some kind of mecha reference, but the closest thing I could find is this Pokemon card. I don't really know what this wants to reference, so if you know, let me know in the comments. Tankzilla is Godzilla. There's Weights, which is a reference to Rock Lee taking off his weights in his fight against Gaara. And finally, the last power-up is Cyclone Rush. The reason why I saved this one for last, even though this entire list has been in alphabetical order, is because this is a really deep cut. I'm pretty sure none of you guys are gonna get this one. This power-up works exactly like Zephyr before they removed it, and the effect looks just like this one scene from Inazuma 11. Okay, to be honest with you, this definitely isn't a reference to anything, but they do look a lot alike. For augments, there are fewer references than power-ups because most of the augments are from previous sets or they're just crests and crowns. That being said, a lot of the new augments are anime references. A Hero Arrives is the name of a Yu-Gi-Oh card, but I'm pretty sure it's just a generic reference to the hero arriving just in time to save the day. A Story of 7 is a reference to collecting all 7 Dragon Balls. Another one is a DJ Khaled reference. Aura farming is when you do something to try to look cool and gain aura. I've seen a million edits of Sun Jin Woo aura farming and solo leveling, so I'll say it's a reference to him. Backup Dancers is a K-pop Demon Hunters reference. Class President is a classic anime trope, but I'm gonna say it's a Miyuki Shirogane reference. Deepening Shadows is a reference to Shikamaru from Naruto. Diamond Hands is a common gambling saying, but there is also Kakegurui, the gambling anime, so I'm gonna say it's a reference to that. Double Trouble is a reference to what Jesse and James say when they're
prepare for trouble.
Make it double.
Explosive Growth is a reference to Panny Andrew whenever he sees Lilia. Grand Slam is a common term in both baseball and tennis, so I'll say it's a reference to both of these anime. Heavy is the Crown is a Linkin Park reference. Hero 101 is a My Hero Academia reference. Isekai is a reference to the genre of isekai where you're transported to another world after getting ran over by a truck. Knuckle Dusters is the vigilante name of Knuckle Dusters is the vigilante name of Iwao Iguro in the My Hero Academia spin-off Vigilantes. Learn from the Best is a reference to Avatar The Last Airbender. The Augment is related to Mentors, and Mentors is a reference to Avatar The Last Airbender, so learning from the best means you're learning from the previous avatars. 9 Lives is the name of one of Hercules' noble phantasms from the Fate series, but I'm pretty sure this is just referencing a cat. The name of 9000 Volts is a reference to Dragon Ball because it's not over 9000, but what it actually does is turn Kennen from a tank into a carry, and Kennen is an electric ninja that reminds me a lot of Killua from Hunter x Hunter. Perfect Form is another hero augment, and just like before, the name and what the augment actually does are two different references. Perfect Form is a reference to Cell's final form from Dragon Ball, and what the augment actually does is turn Zack into this bouncy ball who looks a lot like Luffy in Gear 4. Plot armor and power of friendship are two classic anime tropes that happen in every shonen anime. Plot armor refers to the main character getting out of or winning every single fight even though they shouldn't, and power of friendship is a form of plot armor. The most famous examples being Fairy Tail and Naruto. Slice of life is a genre of anime where the main characters are just living their daily lives. Solo leveling is a reference to solo leveling. Stars Are Born is an Oshinoko reference. Tectonic Titans reminds me of the name Titans from Attack on Titan. The God's Eye Open seems like a generic reference to those classic anime eyes like Renegons and Sharingans. And the last augment, Time Skip, is a reference to the classic trope in anime where there's a time skip in the anime, the most famous being Luffy's time skip in One Piece. For traits, I'm only going to be covering the origins because all the classes like Sniper and Juggernauts are things they reuse every single set. Battle Academia is a reference to My Hero Academia. Crystal Gambit reminds me a lot of Land of the Lustrous. I know the characters in the anime are all different colors because they're modeled after different gems, and the Crystal Gambit units are just blue, but if you look at the actual splash arts of these units, they are all different colors, and they just use the same color scheme for the trait in TFT. Lucadors are just named after Lucadors, but there is an anime that matches the color scheme of these Lucadors very well called Tiger Mask Nisei. Mentor is an Avatar reference where Kabuko is an earthbender, Udyr is a firebender, Yasuo is an airbender, and Rise is a waterbender. Mighty Mech is a generic reference to mecha anime like Super Sentai. Monster Trainer is a reference to Pokemon. Rogue Captain is Twisted Fate's unique trait, and I believe it's a reference to Ace from One Piece because Twisted Fate is literally Ace. I know the crew is based on space adventure animes like Cowboy Bebop, but Twisted Fate is Ace and nothing's gonna change my mind. For Soul Fighters, I can't figure out what they're a reference to, so if you know, please say something in the comments. Stance Master is a reference to either Bruce Lee or Garo from One Punch Man. Garou's gimmick is that he's able to copy the fighting styles and stances of other people, but Lee Sin doesn't really look like Garou, so I'm not sure. Star Guardians are based off of magical girls, so anime like Sailor Moon or Madoka. The name of the trait Supreme Cells seems like a reference to Cell from Dragon Ball, but the aesthetic of the skin line is inspired by Jianghu. Jianghu is a setting in Chinese manhwa that takes place in old rural China, but with martial arts clans like the Heavenly Clan and the Demon Clan, if you've ever read those types of stories. And the skin line is specifically inspired from a gang in the Jianghu that functions outside the law. As I said before, the crew is inspired by space adventure anime like Cowboy Bebop, and the last trait, Wraith, might be inspired by the Shadow Realm from Yu-Gi-Oh, but I'm not really sure. Finally, the last section, units. There are two parts to every unit, what the unit looks like and what their ability name is. A lot of the unit designs and ability names are themed after the unit's traits, so I'll only be going over direct references in this section. The design of Ari is inspired from Madoka Magica. I've never actually seen the anime, but I am trusting this Reddit comment, so I hope it's right. Ash's ability Gates of Avarosa is based off of Gilgamesh's Gate of Babylon, or if you're cultured, Kazane's Gate of Bodilon. For Echo, I'm pretty sure he's getting isekai'd from the Arcane universe, which is close enough to an anime, and his ability's name is a reference to Dio Stan, the world, because both the abilities stop time. Gwen's design reminds me of Chelsea from Akame ga Kill, but using scissors as a weapon isn't like exclusive to Chelsea, so it's a bit of my headcanon. Jarvan's ability is a reference to Kamina's Giga Drill Break from Gurren Lagann. Jinx's ability, Star Rocket Blast Off, is a reference to
Team Rocket's blasting off again!
Karma's Destruction Disc is named after Krillin's move, Destructo Disc. Katarina's ability Teleports Behind You is a reference to that Sonic meme. Lulu and all her monsters are Pokemon references. Lulu's a trainer, Kog'Maw has these electric properties, and he's kind of like Lulu's main Pokemon, at least in the cinematic, so I'm pretty sure he's based off of Pikachu. Smolder might be a reference to Charizard, and I'm not really sure who Rammus is based on. Okay, after I recorded this section, I found out that there are shiny versions of the units. I found Rammus on Twitter, but I played a game with a shiny Smolder. This is a really cool nod to shiny Pokemon, and the shiny version of Smolder is purple, which is the color of shiny Charizard, so Smolder is for sure a reference to Charizard. Rise, the unit, is a waterbender from Avatar The Last Airbender, but his ability is clearly a Kamehameha. Senna's ability, Super Beam Cannon, is a reference to Piccolo's Special Beam Cannon from Dragon Ball. Seraphine is similar to Rise, because even though she's based off of a magical girl, her ability is a Spirit Bomb. Sivir's design looks a lot like Space Captain Harlock, so I'm pretty sure it's a reference to that. Volibear's Ursine Instinct is a reference to Ultra Instinct from Dragon Ball. And the last unit and reference of the video is Zyra's Crystal Thorn expansion. Her ability name has the word expansion in it. Her ability actually buffs all her allies within her domain, and her 3-star version summons vines that circle the map like a real domain expansion. So for the last reference in the video, I'm gonna give it to Jujutsu Kaisen.